to welcome in our NHL Network insider, Elliotte Friedman. Let's start with the Jake Allen contract extension. What's your take on it?
Well, the number one thing I think, Jamie, is that they need somebody for the expansion draft. And you have to be able to expose one goaltender has a certain level of experience and has been in the NHL. And, you know, if you're going to protect Carey Price, then you have to potentially expose Caden Primo. And now that allows them to protect themselves against that. Jake Allen is now the goaltender you have to think they're going to expose in the expansion draft. I was a little bit surprised at the term and the money, but I say good for him. You're worth what somebody is willing to give you. And if that's the Canadians feel that Jake Allen is that important, and they do, I say good for Jake Allen. They've got some protection that can give Carey Price a bit of a rest.
Elliot, you know I don't worry about the expansion draft. I just trade for a veteran goalie when I need to expose him. We don't worry about those things. We work around that later on. I just worry about the dollars and cents. Speaking of which, you're in Toronto. Joe Thornton's from around Toronto. He's played for San Jose forever. He's over in Switzerland right now. But rumblings out of Toronto is that maybe the Leafs have interest in Joe Thornton. Where does that stand?
Mike, the pursuit is on. The recruitment drive is on. I believe members of the Maple Leaf organization, the general manager, Kyle Dubas, the head coach, Sheldon Keefe, and some members of the core group have already reached out and told Tavares they want him to join them in Toronto. I believe a couple of the guys who've spoken to him, I think Austin Matthews has, I think Jake Muzzin has, and I think it's also possible that Captain John Tavares has. Wow. So they have reached out to him and told him they want him to join. Now, the San Jose Sharks also want him to come back, and I've been told do not underestimate Thornton's loyalty to the Sharks. And the other thing that was presented to me today, and I don't know if this is going to be a factor, but someone told me don't be surprised if it is. He's got a long history with Patrick Marleau. Marleau just signed with the Sharks. He could break Gordie Howe's record next year. Does Thornton want to be part of that?
And my question is, would Thornton ask Marleau what it's like to play with all the kids in Toronto? Because Marleau would know, right? So I guess just a quick follow-up on Thornton there. Where does he fit? Like, what does he still bring to that team that makes him so attractive for the Leafs?
Well, the number one, there's a couple of things. Number one, he's a really smart, intelligent player still. He's committed to the game, Jamie. He's a guy who's in his 40s and still playing at a pretty high level. And I think that commitment, they want their players to see it. I think he can still be a help on the number 2 power play. Toronto would love that. He could still play an offensive role at key times. Toronto would like that. But I think the other thing they just want is it's a guy who's seen everything, a guy who still loves playing the game, and I think you want your young players to be exposed to that too. So I think that's a key as much as anything else.
Well, one young player around the league who feels pretty good about his own ability to represent himself is Anthony Duclair. It's so strange that any player represents himself who's not an absolute superstar like Ovechkin or Backstrom or Drew Doughty or a player of that ilk. But Anthony Duclair is taking that on in this very strange environment. How is that going for him? We know he hasn't signed yet, but when you canvass the league, where is he at?
Well, first of all, Mike, my last contract, I tried to do it myself, and I gave up pretty quickly. I thought that was a pretty bad idea. I wouldn't do that again. I reached out to Duclair after Ottawa revealed that had happened. He was good enough to send me a statement, but he also said that he wouldn't talk again until after it was over. I've tried one more time, and true to his word, he stayed radio silent. So I can't really give you a lot from his perspective. I believe one of the teams that has really shown a lot of interest in him is Florida. Now, Florida had a lot of balls in the air. They've had people talking to them about Mackenzie Weegar. They've obviously signed Wenberg. They've made a couple of moves here and there. I still think it's possible he ends up there. Everybody I've talked to has just said that's the kind of name they've heard the most in the past few days is the possibility of Duclair ending up in Florida.
Elsewhere, there is a bit of off-ice drama, or at least the rumblings that some may be unfolding between the Blues and the Vegas Golden Knights. What are you hearing about the Blues potentially filing tampering charges against Vegas regarding the whole Alex Pietrangelo situation?
Well, Jamie, sometimes I wonder if things are a media creation or they just actually exist. And before Pietrangelo signed, there was a story in the New York Post written by Larry Brooks that there was a chance that if he signed in Vegas, they were going to file a tampering charge. And So we've all been chasing it. We've all been trying to figure out, is this actually true? Now, I've sent a couple of notes about it in the last couple of days since Pietrangelo signed. As far as I can tell, as we sit here right now, nothing has happened. And the Blues have given an indication that if they were to do anything, they would not announce it publicly. So the best I could tell right now is nothing has happened. And I'm not sure if it's actually going to happen or it's one of those rumors that we heard that just goes nowhere once it's actually done.
All right, Elliotte, things have slowed down. There's not a lot of money in the market. Arbitrations are coming up, so teams have to save some money for those results. And yet Mike Hoffman, the leading goal-scoring unrestricted free agent, is still out there. Should he be, and where's he going to find a home because he's running out of options?
You know, Mike, I have to tell you, I'm really surprised about what's happened to the forward market. More than defense and goaltending, the forward market absolutely cratered. This year, in the first 5 days of free agency, there were only 3 forwards who signed deals worth $3 million or more.
Wow.
And that was Taylor Hall, Tyler Toffoli, and Craig Smith.
Wow.
And last year, there were 11 in the same time, led by Artemi Panarin, who, of course, we all know has a huge number. So that tells you, I mean, I'm shocked. I'm shocked Hoffman doesn't have a place yet. Guys like Dadonov, guys like Michael Granlund, Duclair, you mentioned earlier, he had 23 goals last year. Like, these are really good, talented players. Now, Hoffman, I believe, has gone kind of back and forth with Nashville. There was interest in Montreal before Toffoli signed. I think Boston and the 2 other teams, too, have been looking for forwards and been circling around a lot of the same guys, like Granlund, too, have been Carolina and Columbus. Now, one thing I was told is that some of these players might just decide to say, okay, I'm pulling back and I'm going to wait for a team to decide it's going to make me a serious offer. Because maybe it's my best thing I can do is put pressure on the team and withhold my services. So I think these guys are grinding away. I'd hesitate to put a timeline on it, but I think some of them, there's a bunch of teams that are interested. They're not offering a ton, and the players have started to say in a couple of these cases, you know what? I'm going to wait and force some of these teams to come to me.
It's a risky play. I like it, but it takes some guts.
So much gamesmanship right now, especially with the flat cap. So, yeah, wow, lots to keep an eye on. Thank you so much for joining us, Elliotte.
My pleasure, guys. Have a good night.